Finally found our moderator. Welcome, sir. I'd like to welcome on stage Mohammed Garuba, the founding partner, Cardinal Stone Partners Limited.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mohammed Garuba from Cardinal Stone. And I have to my extreme left, Chukwunonso Onyeze, the CEO of Assist to Sell. Yep. I also have Udo Marian Okonjo, CEO, Fine and Country. And then to my right, the only gentleman joining me here is the representative of the Honorable Commissioner of Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Housing, Lagos State. Thank you. Yeah, the topic for today is opportunity, risk, return, the real estate investment strategy. Really, what we're looking to cover is trying to know the importance of real estate, identifying and verifying investment opportunities in real estate, the risk associated with real estate, and we hope to conclude with common challenges or barriers to real estate. I feel this conference, in a small way, is doing what is very, very important. It is satisfying a fundamental urge. And that's, it's human nature for us to always want to own a piece of real estate. And that's what this has tried to achieve. We all know that everyone wants to live somewhere. We want to work somewhere. Or we want to shop somewhere. And this is really where real estate comes in. And so without taking too much time, I would start very quickly with Udo. Udo, can you, to a large extent, give us practical considerations for first-time homeowners? What should they really be considering?
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. So first-time home buyers, it's interesting you should ask me that because lately we've been dealing with quite a few first-time home buyers. And some people come up and ask, I have some money, 10 million naira, 2 million, 20 million even. My bank has offered us a loan of a certain amount of money. And most of them are first-time home buyers. And the first thing to always ask is to establish that they already have some form of savings to take care of their basic requirements over a certain period of time. The reason for that is that before you start investing in real estate, you must have taken care of essentially your basic needs, as it were, because real estate is not very liquid. It's not a very liquid asset. So that's very important to recognize. So the lady who had 20 million, when I asked about all her needs and requirements, it turned out that she really couldn't invest 20 million naira. So the first thing is to establish where you are and what you can actually afford to invest, okay? Financing is very critical for real estate. It's actually one of the key advantages, the fact that you can use leverage, and by that I refer to the ability to borrow money to invest in real estate. That's actually probably one of the most powerful aspects of real estate, that you can have 20 million and you can invest in a property that's, say, 30 million or 40 million. And that obviously at the point where maybe you exit, you've essentially taken on the appreciation on that property without having put down all the money. I don't want to go into the details, but figuring out how much you can borrow in order to invest is important for the first-time home buyer. You have to look at what you're earning. You have to look at all your sources of income. I think it's important to recognize that irrespective of where you are, as long as you've taken care of the basics, that you should start. The point is really making a decision to recognize that real estate is something that will help you secure, or at least start putting building blocks towards your financial security. So one, where are you currently? What can you afford to invest? What can you afford to borrow? Recognizing that you have other responsibilities and obligations. And then, you know, there are various places that you can invest. So in Lagos, for example, you don't need 100 million naira to start thinking about real estate. You can think about land. It's a low-hanging fruit for most women. You know, some of our mothers bought their first property even in the village. Or I remember many years ago when I was in secondary school, my mom bought land in Isheri through the federal government, you know, scheme. Even Lagos State also offers some of these types of opportunities. So I'll stop there. I would say financing, figuring out what you can invest, looking at what I call the low-hanging fruit, land, is always a good option to look at. First-time home buyers also should consider pooling, joining an investment club. I guess we'll come to that later on, because they have to gain the confidence and the competence to actually invest in real estate, because it's a very significant asset class.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm very happy you touched on the area of funding or financing. Typically, every investor or anyone looking at real estate knows it's capital intensive. Can you help explain various sources of funding, especially in this climate, where mortgages are not very popular?
Right. Well, okay, so Nigeria has a very low mortgage uptake. We have 3% compared to, say, South Africa at 75%, Kenya at, you know, almost 80%, Ghana at about 60 to 70 something percent. So we really haven't started tapping into the mortgage financing route, which, quite frankly, without that, we really don't have a real estate sector as far as the ability to actually create wealth and for people to own their own properties. However, our company has essentially specialized over the last 10 years and more in helping people get onto the property ladder through what we call is a sort of creative financing, so investing in off-plan properties. So I remember many, many years ago, I know most people tend to think we only do, you know, several $1 million properties. However, 9 years ago, we sold some properties, 7 million naira, 9 million naira, and some of the people who invested in those properties, they're actually here today. It was studios and one-bedroom apartments, and it was a case of putting down a deposit of, say, 500,000 naira. That's bad money that sometimes we use to invest in a bag. If you gave up that bag, for example, you could actually put a down payment, and then over the course of the construction, you then make those sacrifices and you're investing in the property that you want to buy. So off-plan for me is one of the creative ways, and in a sense, tied to that is obviously your installmental payment. And that's actually how 99% of the people who've invested with our company over the years have actually acquired their real estate. So that's one way. You know, some organizations have cooperatives where you contribute on a monthly basis or quarterly according to what you earn, what you can afford, and then you have access to some loans through your company's cooperatives. Recently, our company has also put together a women's cooperative for real estate specifically to enable women to invest in exactly that manner. So creative financing is a very major opportunity and also the biggest gap in the real estate sector, but there are many ways you know, to go around it, and certainly the off-plan and installmental payment would be one of them.
Okay. Beautiful, thank you very much. Nonso, I think for you, I'll try to shift the discussion to due diligencing, which is a very important topic. From your experience, can you take us through the average due diligencing, whether I'm buying land or property? What typically is the due diligence process?
Thank you. Okay, basically, you cannot buy land or acquire any real estate without doing your due diligence. Mm-hmm. And people often think that due diligence is limited only to getting a lawyer to just go to Alausa or the land registry to do a search. For me, due diligence over the past 10 years is in threefold. Number one, you can have a lawyer go do the search, taking copies of the documents to go do the search at Alausa or wherever, and give you a search report. But I also tell the owners that there is something they call a pop-by. I want to stop over at the property, not with the vendor, not with the agent marketing it, on my own, without notice, and ask the mechanic there, and ask the vulcanizer next door who owns this land. And oftentimes you find out that most of those properties that is being given to you is encumbered by one issue or the other, or rather that there are other adverse claimants on it. So you cannot buy any property. It is not even safe to start without doing due diligence. And sometimes people shy away from due diligence thinking that it is expensive. It is not. The average cost of a due diligence in Alausa is anywhere between 10 to 15,000 naira, depending on the lawyer you're using. And even if you ask for a certified true copy, which is to ensure that what you have that is a photocopy is actually what Alausa is maintaining in their registry. That one costs about 6,750. But because people are afraid of paying for professional services, whether it is to use a surveyor or to use a lawyer, they tend to shy away and just say, oh, somebody told me that I could buy in it. And oftentimes they suffer losses. Sometimes they are lucky, they don't suffer losses. But you cannot do without doing due diligence. And due diligence is not just to do the searches before you buy. Due diligence continues up to the point of possession, because possession is 9/10 of the law. If you buy that land, you don't title it, you don't perfect it, you don't fence it, or have at least create some act of possession, whether you sink a borehole or you put a gate man house or a boys' quarters, your due diligence is not yet complete. So you could pay money, and tomorrow it is no longer your own. So due diligence continues up until the moment of possession.
Beautiful, thank you. So what you mean is, if you buy a piece of land and you've not fenced it, you might still lose it.
Even the law tells you that after 2 years, if you do not develop, it can come up for revocation.
Interesting. Thank you very much. I think, Mr. Oyebola, this question will be for you. We've seen a lot of this whole land grabbers, popularly called Omonile. Last year, the Lagos State passed the Properties Protection Law. How has this impacted or reduced the incidence of land grabbers?
Well, anybody who deals in land in Lagos knows that he's actually swimming in murky waters. You never really know what you meet, except you've done due diligence, as I said, except you've done due diligence. Every land in Lagos has an owner. Even when we as government allocate land to individuals, they still meet adverse claimants on the land who say this land belonged to us, belonged to our grandfathers, and so on. And then they want you to buy the land the second time. And if you choose not to buy the land the second time, then they could invade the land and dispossess you of the land without you being able to do it. That's why the government came up with a law on land grabbers, because it seemed it was as if anybody could just go anywhere. In fact, it was so bad that you start a construction somewhere and then you are at the stage and some people will invade the land and tell you, this land belongs to us. And you say, look, this is my title document. They'll tell you, look, you are wasting your time. And then they can pull down the building or kill. It still happens. But thank God for that law. As I said, Lagos is an interesting place when you're dealing in land. I used to joke with some of my colleagues that the only place where you will be claimed that nobody will have an adverse claim against you, probably the Atlantic Ocean. I used to joke many years. I didn't even know we will have Atlantic City today. And I tell my friends that even when you start your reclamation of the Atlantic Ocean, then you will know the real sons of Olokun. Because they will come up and tell this land belonged to our fathers and so on. So that's in land in Lagos. It's a tough terrain, very, very tough. You could lose all your investments. And the first thing I tell people who want to deal in land in Lagos, I've been dealing in land in Lagos for more than 34 years. when I started work, I used to buy land in some places for 500 naira, and now those pieces of land are in millions. But the first thing you do in land in Lagos is do a search on the status of the land, which Nonso said probably that time will cost you 500 naira. Now it probably costs you about 5,000 or 6,000. Just send a copy of the survey plan to the Surveyor General. The owners will tell you the land is good, the title is good, and they'll show you this man has just bought from us, is built to so. This one has, all of them are built. So you just go and build. And so 6,000, 5,000, you ask the Surveyor General, what is the status of the land? It tells you the land is on a drainage alignment for just 6,000 naira, and then you are done. You tell the man, I don't want to buy the land again, find me somewhere else. You know, as I said, I worked in this system. There was a man, he used to be a federal civil servant. He had worked 35 years in Abuja, and then he spent his life building a place in somewhere near Ajah. He was an engineer. He retired and moved to Lagos to move his family into the house. The house was demolished because it fell within a government commitment. The man had stroke and died. And that was all his investment, his lifetime. You know, as I said, in land is the biggest investment anybody would have anywhere in the world. And it calls for, people don't want to engage professionals. As I said, lawyers, they don't want to engage lawyers. Some people don't even want to tell their relations that they're buying land. That's our attitude as Africans. You know, you don't want them to know that you have money. And if you ask them, they say, oh, look, don't go and buy this. You won't tell them. Then they will want to, when they've done the whole and they built, then they want to invite you to come and dedicate. That is typical African. And it's wrong, it's the wrong attitude. So let me pause there now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iqbala. If I take the question further, yeah, thank you. If I take the question further, since last year, has that law really worked?
Yes.
Have we seen anyone prosecuted?
Yeah. People have been prosecuted.
Yeah. Just give us one.
Yeah, we've had, even though it's a deterrent, but it still will not eliminate land grabbing. We've had 2 or 3 prosecutions,
Beautiful.
And I think 1 conviction in the period. And at a point in time, we, as government, had to use extrajudicial means, you know, that we'll go to the land and then set traps for the land grabbers. And then when they come, the police or the army will round them up and then deal with them in one way or the other, just to serve as a deterrent. Okay. But that was before the law, you know, because sometimes they could really. We've had a situation where a government official was shot dead. Yeah, by people who are complaining that the land belonged to them, and the government says resort to the law courts to settle the issues.
Okay, beautiful.
So,
thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll gradually shift this towards investment. Directly, residential versus commercial. What's your advice, Nonso?
In terms of opportunities in real estate, I see it twofold in terms of investment and in terms of businesses that can also spring out of the real estate sector. If you look at, oftentimes I tell people to bank land. The way you save money, the way you bank jewelry, I said bank land. What is happening is that we are not creating more of it, even though some new residential communities are springing out of the waters. But the fact is that you can't go wrong with land. If you find land in Ekpe GRA today for any amount, 500,000, 700,000, buy it. Day before yesterday, there was a sale in Ibuefo of land that a gentleman bought 2 plots, 15,000 naira. Less than a decade ago, and he sold it for 100 million naira per plot. It is only in Lagos and in Nigeria that I say that magic happens in real estate. Anywhere you find land that it has title, whether it has infrastructure or not, development will get there someday. buy it, perfect it, at least hold title, even if it's on paper for now. That might be your retirement tomorrow. Secondly, in terms of retail space, there are a lot of malls going on now, coming up, but the returns on it has been weak. We have a very good illustration with Teju Osho Market that has not turned out to be very profitable. But there are other ones that have been profitable, like Oluwole Oba Mall. There is also opportunities in the buy to build or build to let. Yes, there's money in rental income business properties, even though you have to deal with so many issues, facility management, getting your rent, renovations. There is opportunity there. There is also opportunity in distressed property, even though I'm not a fan of that, because the process is not very transparent, and you have to have a lot of money to be able to move, and you need to have the connections to do that. There is opportunity in actual real estate development commercial papers. Nowadays, we are looking for money to buy real estate because there are simpler investments like treasury bills that is more direct, simpler, and you're more secure than real estate. But there are renowned developers that are now issuing commercial papers. Mixta PLC did one, UAC did one, and even at 20%. So if you are not comfortable putting your money in a property because it can tie down your money for a longer period of time, you can do a real estate development investment paper or commercial paper at 20%. And when you deal with credible developers, what happens is at the end of the day, you have the opportunity to take back your money and interest. You have the opportunity to ask for an asset swap, which is I don't want my money. Tell me what my money and interest is today and tell me what properties that I can buy with it. There is so much. Anybody that can successfully go into rent to own in Nigeria will clean out. Because a lot of people have that initial deposit to put down. They have half of that money. Traditionally in Nigeria, we don't get onto the property ladder till we're in our 50s because we don't have mortgage. So you gotta save and save or wait for one windfall to come before you can buy your own property. But if anybody can come and say, okay, that this flat is 30 million. If you put down 15 million naira today, I give you possession, but I hold title. And you pay over 10 years. You pay over 12 years. Trust me, the person is going to clean out. There's also still a lot of opportunities in property development. Be it as it may, I do know that it's a sad story with Lekki Gardens. But Richard got something correct. Because suddenly, the emerging middle income class, who are not yet on the property market, came out. Whether he used off-plan or he was giving developers mortgage, it came out. And they did transaction and volumes of almost more than 4,500 units. So if you start talking about investment in real estate, it is plenty. There are REITs. Some of them are feasible, some of them are viable, some of them are not. But in terms of careers, we are there, certain parts of Lagos is in dire need of people who do remodeling, who do renovations, you know, so much. I am looking for people in software who can develop apps like Zillow, like Trulia, which means that if a flat falls open in Bagada and you upload it immediately, it goes to anybody who has that app and pushes it like with a push notification. There are careers, there are things and investments. So there's so much that can be done in real estate. More than 2021 opportunities. It's just for you to look at your risk, look at your pocket, and know what you want to do and you'll stay in power.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nonso. Just to be very clear, you've posited that it's better to hold land because once you go into real estate, it's really land you're buying, not the building on it. So as a strategy, if you buy land and hold, it's a very good investment strategy.
It is a very good investment strategy. If you buy shares, the company can fold up tomorrow, and you will not see the promoters of the business. Beautiful. But if you buy land, even if they demolish the property, you will still have your land. Mm-hmm. The only thing that is emerging to be a major threat to property today and real estate investment is global climate change. So because we're having flooding in Lekki, we're having flooding in Houston, in wherever, bushfires in California destroying real estate. So I tell people that real estate investment anywhere in the world is not riskier than Lagos, because there are climate change affecting every part of the world. Bank land, hold land, preserve your land, and you will be amazed tomorrow. It is a better treasury bill, trust me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So if I finally buy land and I build my house, we then get to the issue of landlord-tenant issues. So when I own my house, and I think, Udo, you would attempt this, what's this problem between landlords and tenants? We know that government, on one hand, would favor the tenant. So we gradually see it as quite a lot of landlords are discouraged, because once I get in and I can't pay, what for you is the due diligence landlords really look at? Because there's that issue, you don't want to sell me I find a very good house and you're waiting for the landlord's consent, even when you have money. Yeah.
Well, we don't have, a good, should I say, so data, security checks, how do you check on an individual? Which is why most landlords tend to go for corporate tenants, because they tend to be more secure. They can at least do some basic due diligence on them. And then some landlords also would prefer to deal with tenants who work for reputable corporate organizations. Now, in sort of your more far-flung areas, like in the mainland, what tends to happen is that people tend to take, higher security deposits. That's one of the ways to hedge the risk. And also in Nigeria, for many years, tenants needed to pay 2 to 3 years in advance. Now that is changing, but it's changing mainly on the island in the more highbrow areas, because there's still, a very strong demand at the very low, low end of the rental market. However, I think that in relation to the topic for today, that what we need to be encouraging the women here to do is to become the landlords, right? So let me take the first, quite frankly, there's a woman I always use as a role model. She considered the land and she bought it, okay? And then from the proceeds, she invested. And for me, this segment is really about getting more people onto the property ladder. And you can actually be a tenant and become a landlord. And I'll explain that. We deal with some female business owners who have multiple locations for their businesses. And especially in the last few years where we've been in a recession, most of those properties are underutilized. And we've had to say to some of those business owners, why don't you consider optimizing the use of that property and subletting? Therein you become a landlord. At the last conference we had on real estate investment for women, there were a couple of ladies there. There was one in particular. She took a piece of property, took some part of it, maybe about 30–40%, and sublet the remaining parts. And her yield, her return on investment, is in the double digits. Forget the treasury bill rates that we're talking that are very high. And so many more tenants are looking at that avenue as a way of becoming landlords. However, I have to give a caveat to that. You need to make sure you have the right tenancy agreement that allows you to sublet, because some people have gotten into trouble by actually taking properties that they didn't have the right to sublet. But becoming a landlord is one of the ways. And most of us, well, maybe not most of us, but certainly a lot of families that have, above 50, approaching 60s, that sort of, or even some younger ones, have homes that are underutilized. When we went to school overseas, we did what you call house lets. Well, why live in a 5-bedroom house that is underutilized? How about your guest house, subletting it? You become a landlord, so you're not just consuming your real estate. And many more people, especially in this recession, are looking for ways to actually optimize their properties, become, landlords in addition to being users of that particular property. So there are challenges, but I'm, sort of also looking at the opportunities that exist currently.
Thank you very much, Ansel. Udo, sorry.
Sure.
Thank you. So Lagos State, you have this wonderful rent-to-own scheme. How has that played out, and really, how do people access it?
Okay.
Yeah, we read so much in the papers, but very little impact. So throw clarity on it, and really, how do we access it?
Yeah, the rent-to-own program is the innovation of the administration of Akinwumi Ambode, the current governor. And it came by because we found out that not many Nigerians can afford the minimum deposit required for the mortgage. For you to qualify under the mortgage scheme, not more than 30% of your income is what must be available for you to deposit for the mortgage. So if the amount is more than 30% of your income, you wouldn't qualify. We have a mortgage scheme in Lagos State that you pay 30% of the cost of the house, and then we give you the house, and then you pay the rest over 10 years. But we still found that many people could still not come up with that minimum deposit. So the rent-to-own program is to allow more people come onto the property ladder. Under the scheme, you only pay 5% of the value of the housing unit. We have several housing units. We have in Bagada, we have in Surulere, we have in Magodo, we have in Agege, so many areas. 5% of the amount is paid as a deposit. Then the rest is spread over 10 years. But what you pay during the 10 years will be rent, but it's called rent to own. So at the end of 10 years, you will have paid rent as the owner, and the house now belongs to you without you paying any other thing to anybody. So that's the arrangement. And so, in fact, the applications have overwhelmed us. I'll tell you why. You know, Lagos, the study that was conducted by government 3 years ago showed that we had a deficit of 2.7 million housing units in Lagos. The study said we had to do about 100 and something thousand housing units, almost like on a quarterly basis, to bridge the gap. But the gap has been widening. And so housing is a problem in Lagos. It's one of the major, once you can solve your housing problem in Lagos, your problems are half solved in Lagos. So as government, we've come up with rent to own, where there will be houses in Badagry, in Ekpe, all over the state for individuals who can't come on the ladder because they can't afford the minimum deposit. So, and many people have been allocated houses. And you could just go to the website, Lagos Homes website. The forms are available. You could download it, complete it. And, but for you to qualify, as I said, you must have a regular source of income, and your payment must not exceed 30% of your income.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ebola. I think one more question before we throw it open to the audience. And Udo, this will be to you. What are the most adaptable real estate strategies in Nigeria at the moment? We know the most popular, buy and sell. I mean, you just flip it very quickly. Is that still working? Before the recession, I mean, when things were booming, it was easy. You buy and you don't get trapped. You know you have buyers. Now with the recession, it's slowed down. Developments have slowed down. So how can, we can?
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know, I know we have a mixed audience. There's some entry-level investors, correct, some who haven't even gotten onto the ladder. We have mid and maybe some astute investors. So I just want to clarify that the thing about real estate is that there are two key ways to extract value from real estate investment. One, and the best and the most fundamental, is your cash flow, which is basically that you're buying real estate for the income that you derive from that real estate. So you buy a property and you put a tenant in it. The money that you receive as rent is your cash flow. That's the gold standard for real estate investment. However, the second one is your capital appreciation. And those are the twin key returns or ways of getting returns on real estate. And usually you are able to extract that when you sell. Or in developed economies, you can extract value by pulling out equity from that property. Now, coming to your very specific question, Nigeria in particular, being a developing economy, being that, land, there's less land than the population. And they say in 2050, we should be hitting maybe 400 million or thereabouts. So it really works on the factors of demand and supply, and that's how come what Nonso said about investing in land and holding it will always remain a gold standard, because as they say, buy land and hold. They aren't making any more. And we like to say, except Eko Atlantic City and maybe Orange Island and a few other islands, but even those islands, there's only a limited number of them. So you can't go wrong with that buy and hold strategy, especially for women. The reason it's important for women is that it helps us become disciplined about our money, because once you commit to that land that you're paying for, tendency is that you will, next time you have something you want to spend your money on frivolously, you will give that up, knowing that you have something that your money is going towards. And then in later days, I have a friend, many years ago, bought in Banana Island. She's sort of like my school mother from school. And I remember the time my uncle was in charge of the Banana Island with the Shaguris. They launched that project. And she bought 3 plots of land in Banana Island. At the time, 7 million naira per plot. She gave up everything. Her friends were high flyers, carrying all the wonderful massive bags and everything. And they looked at her like this fashion backward person. Fast forward, almost 20 years later, she owns those 3 plots. Each of them is worth 400 million naira. She's a billionaire by delaying the gratification. Today, she can afford to buy anything that she wants to buy, right? So that buy and hold strategy is still a gold standard. The second one that I'll leave you with, especially in a developing country where, as Mr. Oyebola mentioned, that we still have a significant housing deficit. He mentioned Lagos, but Nigeria has 17 to 20 million, and even that figure is questionable, right? So buying and building on land and providing housing for people in any part of Nigeria is still a solid investment strategy. I'll tell you one last story. A young lady I know was in the Nigerian law school. Student housing is an area to look at. And she was 21 years old. She borrowed some money from family members, had some of her own money, took a small plot of land and built essentially hostel accommodation, because there's a scarcity of that. And she rented each of those rooms for 1.5 to 2 million naira. So there are many things that we can, Nonsense shared so many already. So there are significant opportunities. Housing is a fundamental. Housing, food, and clothing, but housing even more so. So I can share so many things, but I'd like to leave it for other people.
Thank you very much. And so I think at this point, we'll throw it open to the audience and we'll take questions. But as much as possible, we'll try to avoid statements. Yeah, so let's take questions so that, we can effectively utilize the panelists. Okay, so we'll take 3 questions to start with.
Yes, sorry before
please.
You take your question, I want to pass a comment. I'm a civil servant. There's never been any time that it's been easy to buy land. When Lekki was being sold for 450,000 naira, I don't know, maybe I was on level 8 or level 10, I can't remember what level I was. It was attractive. And I can say that for many people who are here too, you're not going to have that amount of money to be able to invest in land at one time. It's never been easy, and it will never be easy. But what my advice, particularly to women, my advice to women is this: irrespective of where the land is, buy whatever you can afford. Even if it's in Badagry, if it's 200, don't say it's too far, or I want Lekki. Not all of us will be able to buy Banana Island for 7 million. Even if Banana Island were 100 and something million, some people will still buy it today, and they will sell for 500 million 10, 15 years from now. But then you will say, oh, somebody bought. But it's so tough to get onto the property ladder in this part of the world. And it will never be easy. We should have that. In fact, some studies that we did about self-build, we found that it takes the average Lagosian who buys land in any place and then builds over a long period, cement today, sand tomorrow. It was taking 17 years, average. It took me 10 years to finish my house. So you understand? But the thing is, everybody will be able to enter at any level that they should just enter at that level.
Right.
Even if it's in Ogun State, even if it's in Ibadan, however far, just enter at that level and then hold. And that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Olami Otu Obada. I have a question. There's a part of Lagos that we all know, very popular, very expensive, but I understand that real estate is meant to be about a demand and supply side. So basically whatever is demanded will be supplied and then the prices determine it. But the problem I have every time I drive past the spot of Lagos is half of the houses are empty, the land is empty, the prices are ridiculous. So I'm asking myself, this is no longer a case of demand or supply. It's literally just, the owners are just deciding a price, and they will literally rather leave it empty than offer it at a certain price. Now, I won't say the part of Lagos, but you probably know. But I'm asking you expats that are sitting here, what can you say? I'm sure people have said, oh, Amcon normally sells those houses and then you can buy for cheap. But my point is, I'm a bit upset every time I drive past because you have the funds, you want to invest, but it's just empty and someone's just sitting there wasting away. How can you get in, buy in? Because I just don't get it. I don't get it.
What area?
Ikoyi.
Says Ikoyi, yeah. Ikoyi.
What's an answer?
Are we waiting for them to...
Yes, exactly.
Hello?
Yes, next question, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Obi, the CEO of 3Invest. I have a question for you, though, and for you, Nonso. Now, I believe the audience, we've got women who are here to either get on the real estate ladder or start a real estate business. I would think so. So for you, though, how are you helping every woman here learn how to invest in real estate, just in 3 ways? And for you, Nonso, how are you helping them get into the real estate, business? So one is investing in real estate, and one is in getting onto the real estate business. So I'd like you to share that. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kachi. I work with IE Business School. My question is directed to Mrs. Udo. She already started talking about financing, and she was saying something about investment clubs. She wasn't able to complete it, but I'd just like you to, elaborate on what your point was, so that we can learn. And also, if there's any other way we can finance, like investing in real estate beyond loans, or maybe the investment club you're mentioning, any other opportunities that we can look at, because I'm very interested in starting off now. I've been holding it off for a while, and I've seen that each time I wait, then the price goes up. So what can I do immediately?
Okay.
Those are 3 questions.
Those are 3 questions, so I'll let the panelists take this. I think the very first question, prices of real estate in Ikoyi, I think I'll let you handle that, Udo.
Okay, we get that question a lot at Fine & Country, where people say Ikoyi is full of empty properties. And it is full of a lot of properties that are vacant. And we always say yes, that they are vacant, and they're vacant because people keep doing the same things and they expect a different result. So in the heady days where you could achieve rental dollars, or dollars in rent in dollars, those days are over. There's been a lot of adjustment policy-wise, economy, recession, all of that stuff. However, human behavior takes a long time to adapt. And so a lot of those landlords find it very difficult to then adapt and make those changes to the current market. And those who find it difficult to adapt end up staying on the market for much longer. And of course, now it's been about 2-3 years, and some of them are beginning to rethink the strategy that wasn't working. But in a sense, it's a bit late because there's something called an overexposure. When a property has been on the market for too long, you associate it, with negative outcomes or negative thoughts around it. However, in any market, there are opportunities. So even with those empty properties, recently our team, we were in the UK at the MIPIM UK, which is the largest real estate conference in Europe. And it was very interesting because a concept that we've been discussing here in Lagos, we saw it live. It's called guardianship, where essentially they take properties that have stood on the market for a very long time. A company takes it and essentially rents it from the landlord at a reduced rate. And essentially, because if a property stays on the market and nobody's in it, it's actually devaluing and depreciating, right? It needs warm bodies in it. So they take it, and under the concept of guardianship, they then put warm bodies, professionals, people who can't ordinarily afford those properties. They put them, they do a check, obviously, put them in those properties, and then take a significantly reduced rent from them. But it's not called rent. They're called guardians because the law of tenancy won't apply to them. They have to be able, they usually transition people. They've come into a new city. They're trying to settle and that sort of thing. The idea is that we need to get more creative about those top-level vacancies that we're seeing, not just in Ikoyi, but actually all over Lagos, quite frankly. So when times change, we need to adapt our strategies. I want to give another example around this rental. Many homes, even in Lekki, are empty. But they're professionals who are commuting for almost 4 hours from, mainland and almost outside of Lagos to come into the central business district. Some of them are beginning to look for essentially short lets for during the week, right? So converting some of these properties that are sitting idle and empty, some people have actually started that as a business. So there are ways to address that, and she is right. I mean, some people just sit on the market, leave their properties, and of course, there's also what we call corruption money. Yeah. Obviously, if you got your money and you have no pressure, you're not, we call them unmotivated investors or landlords or sellers. And we really would rather not deal with those kind of investors because we want results. So that's the answer to that particular question.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Yeah, and then Nonso, I think, learn how to invest in real estate. Question.
Basically, for women, for us women, investing in real estate today is no longer just for financial. There is now cultural implications on reasons why we must invest in real estate. My father died some 20 years ago, and he had said before he died that all he owns belongs to his wife. And it is only at the death of my mother can we, his children, come in control. As Mama aged, she sought to sell the properties. And out of this estate, she decided to sell only one out of this estate so that she can sort out her children. And up stood my brothers and said, hell no, that the girls are not going to get anything. And it is shocking that my elder sisters actually thought it was okay. So let's just leave it for them. And I said, leave what? And with all due respect, we are talking about a property in Ikoyi, and you calculate your own share and they say leave it. So I said to my elder sisters, you know what will happen? Let's sell it. Let me collect my own. That you people can give them your own. And that my mother must be given her own.
Yeah, true.
And I insisted. And this is a family born to one father, one mother. So it's not polygamy. And we are all educated. And my brother, seeing that I was not backing down, took me to the police, sealed my office, sealed my house, and I moved into a hotel. But I told them that that singular act, because of gender, properties acquired by Philip, not even us, that nobody was going to push me out of my own inheritance. Again, they didn't want my late brother, who survived the estate, who died after my brother, who had a daughter, to also be given something. And singular-handedly, I decided that if for nothing else, that I was going to challenge that. Seal the house, seal the office, my staff will come to work and sit in the gutter. Anybody that comes, what happened? They sealed our office. They took me to special fraud unit. It's not a joke. We all turned up at Milverton. Good thing I'm a lawyer, a very vocal one. So I sent a text to everybody I knew who was a lawyer. So we turned up at special fraud unit. But their doing that made my sisters to wake up. And I said, why will we give up this just because of gender? I have sisters who had children in medical school abroad who couldn't pay for summer classes. And you want us to give up because they are male. But challenging that and fighting and insisting that Mama is a common law wife, as such, she must get her 33.3%. No story.
I like that.
Made sure that at the end of the day, that was what prevailed. The estate was shared equally amongst males and females. Mama got her 33.3%. She is 88. And as we age, we require more care. Two domestic staff, a driver, a cook. She has to have physiotherapy 3 times a week. Who is going to fund that? And what I say to my brothers is, had I not stood up and forced my elder sisters to also step up, we would have lost, and we would have been going to them to beg, or Mama would have been at their mercy. And not everybody is as strong as some of us. So if you're not that strong to challenge the status quo, I didn't determine my chromosome, so nobody will disinherit me.
That's a classic. I agree with
you. If we come from a society that naturally is prejudiced against us, and we are in relationships and marriages that think that investing in real estate is a sign that you want to bolt out. Yes. There is a woman who told me I can't buy property. If I buy property, my husband will think I want to end the marriage. So we had to go and buy shop, because she will not move into a shop. But so that at least she can have a piece of real estate. So you already know that there is a gender bias, whether it is on grounds of inheritance, whether it's on grounds of when you get married. Even the marital law and the married women property ownership law in Nigeria does not protect us. So why would you wait for somebody to get you onto the property ladder? Some of the hair we have on our hair, or the handbags we carry, can buy a plot of land in Mowe. When Mowe started, some 10 years ago, it was 425,000 naira for a plot of 658 square meters. Today, it is 4 million naira. Buy land anywhere you find it. Forget if it is far. It is not every property that you buy that you must live in.
Yes, exactly. I think, yeah. And then, Udo, there was the question on financing their investment clubs.
Okay. All right. Just to add to what Nonso said, because Ruth also asked that question, there's also a quote that says, don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. And I think that that's something that, we should, try to remember. Everybody needs and requires real estate. I met a young lady during lunch that is developing, her and her husband own a development company. Building, she talked about the value chain. Facilities management is a significant opportunity in the real estate value chain that I like to call it that women have the stiletto advantage. We like to beautify things. We're natural beautifiers, nurturers, and all of that stuff. So we can actually bring a lot of value to the real estate, the full spectrum of the real estate value chain, from interior decorating to even the way we design the homes. We're more likely to sell the properties that women design and actually beautify faster than the ones men do. And we've seen that play out, you know, in selling real estate in Nigeria. To the question of real estate investment clubs, the reason we started our real estate investment club for women, and why we advocate them and even think that even an organization like Wimbeys can actually have its own real estate investment club, just no different from the way companies do also, is that it's the power of numbers. And I'll give a couple of reasons very quickly. One is that when you invest in numbers, there is the power of negotiation. Negotiation is the critical success factor for making money or creating value out of real estate. How you buy real estate is very important. And by how you buy, I mean at what price you bought. So imagine if one person wants to buy an apartment, because we've been talking about land, but quite frankly, you know, there are many opportunities. You can buy off-plan apartments or houses or even, you know, shops that haven't been built or have been built. You can buy, you know, existing single standalone properties. But if one person wants to buy, say, one apartment, and it's, say, 25 million naira or 50 million naira, they can negotiate for maybe a 5% discount, but they don't have very strong leverage. Imagine if we came together, all of us in this room, there's almost maybe 150, 200 people in this room, and 100 of us, we belong to this club, and we decide we want to buy 20 or 30. All of a sudden, the developer or the seller, right, has a group where he's getting, you know, a large sum of money, and therefore we have the power of negotiation because of the power of numbers. That's why we set up the Real Estate Investment Club. In addition, one of the things we found, our company, 35% of our clients are women. And, you know, even before I joined the Fine & Country International Network, my core category of clients, you know, essentially were women, most of them in the financial sector, helping them get onto the property ladder with as little as 250,000 naira 15 or so years ago. And a lot of them now own significant real estate just because they were able to get in with just a little bit of money. Some of them were even international properties because we had the power of, you know, mortgage financing, which we didn't have in Nigeria. But so the power of numbers gives you the power of negotiation. The power of numbers gives you also the power of competence, which leads to confidence. Because we found that a lot of women struggle with what she